Chapter 10 of Cocoa and Chocolate. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This reading by Allison Hester of Athens, Georgia. Cocoa and Chocolate, Their History from Plantation to Consumer by Arthur W. Knapp. Chapter 10. The Consumption of Cacao. The war has caused such a disturbance that the statistics for the years of the war are difficult to obtain. For many years the German publication, The Guardian, was the most reliable source of cacao statistics, and so far we have nothing in England sufficiently comprehensive to replace it, although useful figures can be obtained from the Board of Trade returns of imports into Great Britain from Mr. Theo. Fasmer's reports, which appear from time to time in the Confectioners' Union and elsewhere, from Mr. Hamel Smith's collated material in Tropical Life, and from the reports of important brokers like Monsieur Woodhouse. In 1919, the Bulletin of the Imperial Institute gave a very complete resume of cacao production as far as the British Empire is concerned. Great Britain. Since 1830, the consumption of cacao in the British Isles has shown a great and continuous increase, and there is every reason to believe that the consumption will easily keep pace with the rapidly growing production. One effect of the war has been to increase the consumption of cocoa and chocolate. Many thousands of men who took no interest in sweets learned from the use of their emergency ration that chocolate was a very convenient and concentrated foodstuff. Cacao beans cleared for home consumption. In 1830, 450 English tons. 1840, 900 English tons. In 1850, 1,400 English tons. In 1860, 1,450 English tons. 1870, 3,100 English tons. 1880, 4,700 English tons. 1890, 9,000 English tons. 1900, 16,900 English tons, and in 1910, 24,550 English tons. Cacao beans imported into United Kingdom. In 1912, 33,600 total imported tons, 27,450 tons retained in the country, 24,600 home consumption tons. 1913, 35,000 total imported tons, 28,200 tons retained in the country, 23,200 home consumption tons. 1914, 41,750 total imported tons, 29,600 tons retained in the country, 24,900 home consumption tons. 1915, 81,800 total imported tons, 54,400 tons retained in the country, 40,300 home consumption tons. 1916, 88,800 total imported tons, 64,750 tons retained in the country, 29,300 home consumption tons. 1917, 57,900 total imported tons, 53,100 tons retained in the country, and 41,300 home consumption tons. The above figures are compiled from the Bulletin of the Imperial Institute. The total imports for 1819 were 42,390 tons. This sudden and marked drop in the amount imported was due to shortage of shipping. There were, however, large quantities of cacao in stock, and the amount consumed showed a marked advance on previous years, being 61,252 tons. The Board of Trade returns for 1919 are as follow. Cacao beans imported into the United Kingdom. From British West Africa, 72,886 tons. From British West Indies, 13,219 tons. From Ecuador, 9,153 tons. From Brazil, 3,665 tons. From Ceylon, 903 tons. From other countries, 13,820 tons. Total, 113,646 tons. Home consumption, 64,613 tons. It will be noted that the import of British cacao is over 75% of the total. Before the war, about half the cacao imported into the United Kingdom was grown in British possessions. During the war, more and more British cacao was imported, and now that a preferential duty of 7 shillings per hundredweight has been given to British colonial growths, we shall probably see a still higher percentage of British cacao consumed in the United Kingdom. Value of cacao beans imported into the United Kingdom. To the nearest 1,000 pounds. In 1913, the total value of cacao beans imported, 2,199,000 pounds. From British possessions, value, 1,158,000 pounds. Percent from British possessions, 52.7. 1914. The total value of cacao beans imported, 2,439,000 pounds. From British possessions, value, 1,204,000 pounds, 49.4%. 1915. Total value of cacao beans imported, 5,747,000 pounds. From British possessions, value, 3,546,000 pounds, 61.7%. 1916. Total value of cacao beans imported, 6,498,000 pounds. From British possessions, value, 4,417,000 pounds, 68%. 1917. Total value of cacao beans imported, 3,498,000 pounds. From British possessions, value, 3,010,000 pounds, 86%. 1918. Total value of cacao beans imported, 3,040,000 pounds. From British possessions, value, 2,549,000 pounds, 83.8%. 1919. Total value of cacao beans imported, 9,207,000 pounds. From British possessions, value, 6,639,000 pounds, 72.1%. That the consumption of cacao is expected to grow greater yet in the immediate future is reflected in the prices of raw cacao, which, as soon as they were no longer fixed by the government, rose rapidly. Thus Accra cacao rose from 65 shillings per hundredweight to over 90 shillings per hundredweight in a few weeks, and now, January 1920, stands at 104 shillings. World consumption. The world's consumption of cacao is steadily rising. Before the war, the United States, Germany, Holland, Great Britain, France, and Switzerland were the principal consumers. Whilst we have increased our consumption, so that Great Britain now occupies second place, the United States has outstripped all the other countries, having doubled its consumption in a few years, and is now taking almost as much as all the rest of the world put together. It is thought that since America has gone dry, this remarkably large consumption is likely to be maintained. World's consumption of cacao beans. To the nearest 1,000 tons, 1 ton equals 1,000 kilograms. USA, pre-war, 1913, 68,000 tons. War period, average of 1914, 15, 16, and 17, 103,000 tons. 1918, 145,000 tons. Post-war, 1919, 145,000 tons. Germany, pre-war, 1913, 51,000 tons. War period, average of 1914, 15, and 16, and 17, 28,000 tons. Post-war, 1919, 13,000 tons. Holland, pre-war, 1913, 30,000 tons. War period, average of 1914, 15, 16, and 17, 25,000 tons. 1918, 2,000 tons. Post-war, 39,000 tons. Great Britain, pre-war, 1913, 28,000 tons. War period, average of 1914, 15, 16, and 17, 41,000 tons. 1918, 62,000 tons. Post-war, 1919, 66,000 tons. France, pre-war, 1913, 28,000 tons. War period, average of 1914, 15, 16, and 17, 35,000 tons. 1918, 39,000 tons. Post-war, 1919, 46,000 tons. Switzerland, pre-war, 1913, 10,000 tons. War period, average of 1914, 15, 16, and 17, 14,000 tons. 1918, 18,000 tons. Post-war, 1919, 21,000 tons. Austria, pre-war, 1913, 7,000 tons. War period, average of 1914, 15, 16, and 17, 2,000 tons. Post-war, 1919, 2,000 tons. Belgium, pre-war, 1913, 6,000 tons. War period, average of 1914, 15, 16, and 17, 1,000 tons. 1918, 1,000 tons. Post-war, 1919, 8,000 tons. Spain, pre-war, 1913, 6,000 tons. War period, average of 1914, 15, 16, and 17, 7,000 tons. 1918, 6,000 tons. Post-war, 1919, 8,000 tons. Russia, pre-war, 1913, 5,000 tons. War period, average of 1914, 15, 16, and 17, 4,000 tons. Canada, pre-war, 1913, 3,000 tons. War period, average of 1914, 15, 16, and 17, 4,000 tons. 1918, 9,000 tons. Italy, pre-war, 1913, 2,000 tons. War period, average of 1914 through 17, 5,000 tons. 1918, 6,000 tons. Post-war, 1919, 6,000 tons. Denmark, pre-war, 1913, 2,000 tons. War period, average of 1914 through 1917, 2,000 tons. 1918, 2,000 tons. Sweden, pre-war, 1913, 1,000 tons. War period, average of 1914 through 1917, 2,000 tons. 1918, 2,000 tons. Norway, pre-war, 1913, 1,000 tons. War period, average of 1914 through 17, 2,000 tons. 1918, 2,000 tons. Other countries, estimated. Pre-war, 1913, 5,000 tons. War period, average of 1914 through 1917, 8,000 tons. 1918, 11,000 tons. Post-war, 1919, 26,000 tons. Total, pre-war, 1913, 252,000 tons. War period, average of 1914 through 1917, 283,000 tons. 1918, 305,000 tons. Post-war, 1919, 380,000 tons. The above figures are compiled chiefly from Mr. Theo Vasmer's reports. The Gordian estimates that the world's consumption in 1918 was 314,882 tons. In several of our larger colonies, and in at least one European country, there is obviously ample room for increase in the consumption. When one considers the great population of Russia, 4,000 to 5,000 tons per annum is a very small amount to consume. It is pleasant to think of cocoa being drunk in the ice-bound north of Russia. It brings to mind so picturesque a contrast. Cacao, grown amongst the richly colored flora of the tropics, consumed in a land that is white with cold. When Russia has reached a more stable condition, we shall doubtless see a rapid expansion in the cacao consumption. End of chapter 10. End of Cocoa and Chocolate, Their History from Plantation to Consumer. This reading by Allison Hester in July 2008.